All right, guys, we are back. Everything Combat. We have Big George Foreman, I believe.
This is George.
Oh, my goodness. It is the Big George Foreman. How are you, sir? This is Pat Militich and Jeffrey Wilson.
Yeah, life is great.
Fantastic.
Good, great. And I will say this, that you have the most unique voice message on your phone I have ever heard in my life, sir. That is quite creative.
Yeah. But life is good. You gotta leave a message if you're good.
Yeah, no, it was an interesting little chronicle of your life, from kind of not beginning to end, obviously, because you're alive and well. But it very interesting, kind of, the fight with Muhammad, et cetera, et cetera. But again, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to the one, the only George Foreman, Olympic gold medalist in 1968, two-time world heavyweight champion, and as an individual who was 45 years old, he threw it on Michael Moore at 45 years old. A southpaw, former light heavyweight champion. He took care of him in the 10th round, knocked him out, inspired so many. George Foreman, thank you so very much for coming on, sir. You have been, wow. You traded leather with Muhammad Ali. Amazing story, amazing human being. Thank you so very much, sir.
This is wonderful for me. I can tell you that.
Now, the whole feeling to this show, George, is people who have overcome hardship in life and who've accomplished great things. And obviously you qualify. So, a lot of people don't know your early history from the Fifth Ward in Houston, a very rough upbringing, a very dangerous place. A lot of people lost their lives in that area of Houston. And then you were saved by the Job Corps. At least that was the initial part of your life with LBJ founding the Jobs Corps and you finding a lot of inspiration in that.
I was just telling my friends yesterday, as a matter of fact, how life was 1965. I got on an airplane, and I was scared. Here it is, 2019. I'm still afraid when I get on the airplane. So life is pretty much the same, but they treated me so nice. My first airplane trip, they gave me a Coca-Cola and asked me what I want more, and then told me to pick up my tray. But outside the windows, it was a propeller plane.
Well, I always trust the prop planes a little bit more, to be honest with you, George, because when the jet engines stop, they tend to fall. There's a little better glide pattern with the prop planes.
Now you tell me. See, I told you I was already afraid.
Well, George, I mean, like again, Pat said, man, a lot of what this show is about is overcoming obstacles, getting ourselves out of our own way to take ourselves to the next level. And, nobody really does that by themselves. And through your Job Corps experience, which obviously helped change the direction of your life, Mr. Brodus, if you don't mind, speak to how key and essential he was to getting you in the boxing game and how he helped change your life.
Yeah, I'm in a Job Corps center in Oregon, Grants Pass, Oregon, and I was pretty much a bully. And all the kids listening to Cassius Clay then fighting Floyd Patterson. And after the fight was over, I didn't pay much attention. They on the radio, they said, "George, you were such a big bully. If you think you're so tough, why don't you become a boxer?" I said, "I'll show you." I went to Pleasanton, California, and someone told me as I was walking through the day room, "That's the boxing coach right there." And I ran right into him, Doc Brodus. I said, "Hey, I want to be a boxer." He said, "Well, you're big enough, George, and he didn't call me George. You're big enough, and you're ugly enough. Come on down to the gym." And I went down to the gym, and I'd never had anyone to believe in me that much in my life. He kept telling me, "You can be champion. You can do this. You can do that. You can be an Olympic gold medalist." I thought, this guy's crazy. But if I told you I had big plans for my life, I'd be lying. It was him. Doc Brodus had big plans for George Foreman's life. And he lived to see me winning a gold medal. He was in Mexico City. He carried my bucket in Kingston, Jamaica. I also carried my bucket when I recaptured the title from Michael Moore. Can you believe it?
That's amazing. And
all the way. I've never been – that's what I always said about athletes. We should be the most loyal people of all, because there's so many people who've done so much for us.
Absolutely. A lot of inspiration out there for all of us who are athletes. And, I watched several times your match. I've seen it over the years against the Russian in the championship when you won the gold medal in the '68 Olympics, and talk about a severe beating for an amateur boxing match. It was horrifying to watch what you did to that Russian.
Ionis Chapoulis, October 27th, 1968.
I remember I was really giving it to him, but then in the middle of the second round, I said, if I don't get him, I'm going to faint the next round because the altitude was so high.
Yeah, Mexico City.
I just didn't have any more wind. I just couldn't take it. He didn't know he saved me that night.
Yeah, because he quit on the stool, didn't he?
No. They stopped the boxing match.
He was bleeding profusely.
But I just didn't have much left. I'm telling you, that altitude in Mexico City, we were supposed to train and get acclimated in Denver, Colorado. Denver, Colorado was nothing compared to Mexico City.
Wow.
After one round, you just didn't have any more.
And the air is very dry. It's like
yeah, and you start thinking, I'm going to die.
So you also had a chance, through your Job Corps experience, you actually had a chance to meet Lyndon Baines Johnson. What was that? I mean, coming from where you came from, the expectations maybe weren't so high, and here you are winning gold medals, and you're meeting the president in the Oval Office. What was that like?
When I first heard of Lyndon Johnson, truly, I went into the Job Corps, and I thought he was the president of Texas. I didn't really realize he was the president of all the United States. And then I wore a cap in style that year. All the youngsters, we wore an LBJ Stetson. We were cool. Then to be invited to the White House, shake his hand, make friends with him, and even personally invited me back to a state dinner a little while later. So I got to be close with him and sit there and looked at me as if to say, look, I passed the baton to you now. You got to run something yourself with the eyes. I didn't understand it, but I do now.
Very interesting. And, as you moved into the professional ranks and fought a lot of huge names, one of them being Smoking Joe Frazier. Smoking Joe Frazier was actually, George, I'll let you know, was my favorite boxer growing up. I was a little kid sitting on the couch at home eating popcorn. I remember watching you, Ali, Smoking Joe, all those guys fight. But you actually, for as a scary a human being as you were when you were a younger man, and please don't hit me now either, that you were afraid of a guy who was, he was a smaller guy than you. He wasn't a small man, but he was smaller than you. Besides that left dynamite hook that he had, you were actually afraid of him.
Look, the first boxing match, I went to a pay-per-view. Doc Broders and another couple of guys took me to see the pay-per-view match of Joe Frazier, Buster Mathis in Madison Square Garden. And it was really to open up that the new Madison Square Garden at that time. And he was this little guy, kept attacking this big guy. And I thought, man, they wanted me to be champ, but I hope he dies before I get a chance to fight for it. I'd never seen anything like that. It was like someone unleashed a monster. And I didn't want to fight Joe Frazier. Buster Mathis didn't, and no one else did. And I was live in Madison Square Garden when he fought Muhammad Ali the first time. He just wouldn't give up. He kept coming.
Well, you knocked him down. Would you knock him down 5 or 6 times?
Yeah, I was scared. That's what it is. The greatest thing a fighter can have is fear. I was so afraid of Joe Frazier. I knocked him down. I said, oh, he's mad now. He got up. I knocked him down. I said, what did I do that for? He's going to kill me. And I knocked him down again. And it wasn't power. It was just fear.
Well, and doing some of the show prep, it was very interesting because, you kind of emulated somewhat of your persona with the late, great heavyweight champion, Sonny Liston. And I remember, you were mean mugging Joe at the press conference or whatever, and you were like, man, he's shorter than me, and I hope he doesn't look down at my legs because they are knocking.
Yeah, right in the ring I got in. I'm telling you, Archie Moore told me, stare him down, look in there, don't show him you're not afraid, psych him out. And that's when I realized, man, if he looks down at my knees, he's going to see them shaking. I didn't want, the idea is to stare him down so he'd drop his eyes. I didn't want him to drop his face that night. I was literally afraid of Joe Frazier. I thought if you hit him, he liked it. If you missed him, he just got upset.
Well,
there was no way. It was just one of those things I had to do.
Well, you definitely hit him. And it was obviously, I wasn't alive at that time, but seeing it back, I was like, whoa, you just dismantled such a dominant champion. And let me ask you, looking back, I'm a huge, obviously, boxing fan, but Mike Tyson had a documentary as well. And Champ, Pat, you might be able to chime on this as well. Obviously with fighting, there's a huge fear component. There almost has to be. And listening to Mike Tyson say, as I walk to the ring, I'm scared. I've dreamed of this man beating me. The closer I get to the ring, the more invincible I become. Once that bell rang, did that fear was that still a part of your fighting, that night? Or once that bell rang, you were like, it's on?
Oh, yeah. The fear stays there, especially for me. I remember those girls walking by, and I was thinking, I don't want to see them again. Don't come by here again. Because every time that means you had one more round to fight. I hated to see those girls walk past you. Round 2, round 3. I said, oh no. And a lot of times you see them walk past you in round 6 and you want to cry. You really wanted to cry.
So,
I wanted those things to be over. That's why I saw so many knockouts.
You wanted to get paid by the second, not by the minute.
I just wanted to get those things over.
Right. So now, out of all the monsters that you fought, and these are, you think of the legendary days that you took part in and were one of the monsters during those days. Which man, out of all the men that you fought or sparred with, was the hardest puncher that you ever trained or fought?
Sonny Liston.
Oh, that's what I was. I was wondering.
I always had the feeling that he was playing with me, and I couldn't do anything about it. Because everybody know me as the big brute. Here come George. Here he comes. But if you had seen Sonny Liston and George Foreman sparring, you would have thought I was Sugar Ray Robinson.
You were doing some dancing, huh?
I would not stand. That was the only man that I couldn't. He could stand up to me. I couldn't make him budge at all. And after a while, he hit me with that heavy jab. I had to move.
That's a scary human if he could do that with you.
I said, he's not going to catch me. Oh, I had footwork. Someone should have filmed those things. They were where did George learn to dance like that?
Got light on your feet real quick.
Right, light on my feet. I'm telling you.
Well, Champ, we have a little less time than we originally have, so I want to obviously fit in as many questions as I can. And, one of the hugest ones for me, and the man is world-renowned. He was beloved. You fell in love with him as well after hating his guts after that 1974 fight, October 30th. What was it like? Two-part question here. What was it like facing Muhammad Ali at that time? And in retrospect, why is Muhammad the greatest of all time?
When I got in the ring with Muhammad, I thought, boy, this is going to be the easiest fight of my life. It was
really?
the first time I'd gotten into the ring totally without fear. I've always been afraid to get in the ring. I thought, I'm going to clean this guy out in no time. And you look over on the corner, he's moving around. He looked like a baby doll. That guy.
He's so pretty.
Right, and that was the curse on him. You thought, man, and then you look back at the fight and look at his record. Nobody has ever knocked this guy out. How in the world did I figure I'm going to get him in 1 or 2 rounds? But I never was afraid of him, and that was the curse, because you don't protect yourself when you're not afraid. And and then why so many people were in love with him, I figure. I'm telling you, he was a walking show. The greatest show on earth. You see him coming down the street and your heart start pumping.
Wow.
This was the most exciting human being I'd ever met. And I was going to try to kill him in the ring. I remember he wouldn't even look at me. I never saw him in Africa. We never had a press conference together, anything.
Yeah.
So someone had told him, you got to psych him out. And that was his only chance. In the ring was the first time we met together, before the fight. And I stared at him like a horse. Then finally, he raised his eyes up real sheepish and said, George, you were a kid in high school when I fought Liston. You don't belong here. But, and I was staring so mean, and I almost burst out laughing because I wanted to tell him, man, I never spent a day in high school in my whole life. Someone had told him wrong. Someone had told him wrong. That was going to psych me out, but he never psyched me out. We never met. We never had a press conference together. In Africa, our camps were miles apart. We never met until the hour of the fight.
That's interesting because in leading up to that fight, you had suffered a cut, I believe, and you had to heal up in Zaire because the dictator of the country, Mobutu, would not let you guys leave because they had invested so much time and money and resources into making sure that fight happened. That he was a dictator. He was like, you guys are not leaving this country.
Mr. Foreman, please don't leave us. We are country in this. We have problems here. If you leave, people are going to think we couldn't do it. Oh, Mr. Foreman, please. I got this big gash over my eye now. But you can beat him. Everybody knows you can beat him. And that's God. I said, well, I don't know. But please, we're begging you not to leave. And I thought after a while, this doesn't sound like a plead or they're begging me. This almost sounds like a demand.
He's telling you you're in a nice way. Your plane's probably going to go down if you try and leave.
Or you're probably going to go down before you get to the airport.
There you go. Yeah, that's.
And so I had 10 days where I couldn't sweat to let the scar eat, and I didn't use stitches. I wanted to go to one of the other Belgian countries, but I didn't. No planes left with me. But I had to put butterflies on my eyes to heal it. And after 10 days, then I could start back sweating again. But I couldn't spar. I had to do nothing but road work around the track.
Wow.
Running. I must have been in the most super condition of my life in running. I should have been a marathoner after that.
I find it
no one could spar with me. They were afraid they may knock the cut open again. So I couldn't spar.
Yeah, I found that interesting, too, that cut, delayed the fight, obviously, so long. But I find it fascinating that you said there was no you didn't fall for any psychological ploys.
No, we never saw each other.
Well, I'm just saying, I was from the standpoint of when you guys got over to Africa and Ali, could have ran for president and probably won because he really galvanized the natives, the whole Ali Boumaier. That in no way affected you. That's so fascinating.
Look, every time I'd leave out of the hotel, there was George Foreman Boumaier, too.
No, okay. We just didn't hear much about that. I hear you.
No,
cool.
I mean, that was some of the things they said. I heard later on that people said I brought a dog into Africa, and the people didn't like that. I said, man, these people have lions and tigers. How are they going to be afraid of a German Shepherd dog?
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing because apparently
they got hyenas and everything running around. Those people weren't afraid of my dogs. They let me do tricks, throw sticks, and catch the sticks, and those people are dog fanciers.
Well, and come to think of it, you had pet lions and tigers too, didn't you?
Yep. I figured that after I lost to Mohammed, I said I better move up in pets. I'm getting a lion and tiger.
That's how were you afraid around those animals? My goodness.
No, I wasn't afraid of anything. That was my problem all through life. Attack anything I was afraid of, I would attack.
I find that so fascinating, George, because the George we've all seen, after your, just the new George, the reinvented George, the pleasant George. It's hard for me to reconcile the old school George who was just so mean and stuff with the clearly just nice, very humble, pleasant person you are now. Floating through because our time is ticking away. Again, part of this show is the moments that help change our lives. The end of that Jimmy Young fight, you had an amazing, amazing transformation. People were saying, it was the heat, et cetera, et cetera. What was going on in that locker room after your fight with Jimmy Young and how that affected your life?
In a split second, I'm trying to cool off. I was dead and alive again. Evidently, they picked me off the floor, laid me on the table, and I saw blood on my hand and my forehead. And there I am screaming and kissing everybody in the room. Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. I kissed everybody. And they would say, what is wrong with this George Foreman now? I left Africa, and I couldn't understand what had happened to me. I'd experienced death, and I didn't believe in religion. I thought that was for kooks and poor people. But I started preaching on the street corners. For 10 years, I became nothing but an evangelist. And then that profound event in my life, I became broke. I had to come back to boxing.
And what was besides the money? You wanted to do something else, and you wanted to do something for other people was really a big motivation in that, right?
Well, I had opened up the George Foreman Youth and Community Center. My brother, I was going out, and I was taking care of kids. And these kids, I tell them, you got to do this, you got to do this, and you got to get money to buy this. They said, we don't have. I said, ask your father. We don't have a father. And all of a sudden, the place I opened for kids to hang out, come to find out, so I just charged them $1. If you are 6 years old, you can get in for $6 a year. $7 a year.
That's awesome.
And I'd sit and hang out with these kids and become friends and listen to them. And so I went out to earn some money for speaking at a church one time near Georgia, and the guy, after 3 days, said, help George with his kids. And that was the first time I felt it was a shame for me to be asking these people. And I used to have swimming pools and Rolls Royce. What was I doing begging these people for the little money they had? I said, I'm going to go back to boxing. I'm going to be heavyweight champ of the world. That's how I'll get my money. I didn't want to close that youth center. Those kids didn't have any other place to go.
That's an incredible story. And at 40 years old, you jump back into professional boxing with a mission to win the heavyweight title again. And along that run, I have to tie this into, because we're in eastern Iowa, western Illinois, and there was a guy that was a boxer here named Frank Gator Lux, who you fought in I believe Anchorage, Alaska, early in your comeback.
Right. That's right.
And I loved Frank Gator Lux. I kind of looked up to him, to be honest with you, George, and you smashed the guy.
You know what? The good thing about Frank Gator, he wasn't afraid of me. I didn't have to run after him. He was right there in front of me. I said, what? I mean, a guy was not afraid of me. And that was the deal. There's two things. He and Joe Frazier weren't afraid of me. I didn't have to worry about the rope or dope or anything.
Well, and I'm gonna have to express my little bit of heat with you too, George, because on March 26th in Caracas, Venezuela, you did my cousin Kenny Norton wrong. I've related to Mr. Norton. God rest him. But what was that like fighting my cousin? Why'd you do him so wrong?
You know what? I looked across the ring at Ken Norton. That was a different thing. This guy had muscles all in his eyes. No one want to fight people like that. You always look for an easy touch. And I said, man, he's as big as I am, plus drained off in muscles. I was afraid of him for good reason.
Yeah, he was definitely pretty jacked. And, well, again, we're sort of limited on time, George, so I hate to just bust through
Let's
these
get
questions.
to the title.
Yeah, so, again, man, inspiring the world. You actually started your comeback in 1987 at 38 against Steve Zowski.
Okay.
But on November 5th, 1994, 45 years old, the great Jim Lampley, who, if you can put in a good word for us, we're trying to get him on the show as well, you pretty much predicted Michael's going to stand right in front of me and let me knock him out. Talk about that fight that night against Michael Moore, former light heavyweight champion, former heavyweight champion, and southpaw of all things, which is really difficult. Tell me about that fight, George.
The commissioners told me just before the fight, look, the gloves have been chosen. They're Reyes gloves. They're called the puncher's gloves.
Yeah. That's
what people – and Michael Moore demands that. You got to fight in Reyes gloves. He actually believed he was the puncher, and I was not. You talk about a guy – and so I didn't have to look for him. He was standing there, go left and right, and I didn't have to worry about it. He believed that he would knock me out. He didn't know. At 45, that's what you need. You just didn't need someone running and hiding from you. And I went into really a downhearted feeling was when I left the dressing room. They said the 3 knockdown rule has been waived, which meant if I knocked him down 3 times, he could still get up,
right,
run from me, and win the fight. I knew if I knocked him down, it would have to be permanent. And so the stage was set for an upset.
Well, and it was I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I already know what I was going to say.
Well, it was just amazing listening to Lampley, and Michael Moore doesn't buy it. You know, he's like, oh, George said he set this all up. That's BS. I mean, clearly watching that fight, as you slowly set up that left-right, that 1-2, and as you say all the time, you just, that one was off. Let me just lower this one a little bit. I mean, you could see.
Punch for his chest, right?
Yeah. I hit him with the right on top of the head a little bit, right above the eye. Now, so let me lower it a little bit. That would be right where the bottom of his nose would be. And that's where, and I said, let me lower it. And then I look at the film, and he thought, man, it happened right quick, but it doesn't happen like that when you're a ring.
Right.
In the ring, it's like you have all that time to think. And I practiced night and night, and it was sad because sometimes I'd cry because I'd have to take the power off my jab to throw that right hand. And for years, all I did was practice powerful jabs. And it bothered me with Holyfield. I'd hit him with the jab, and I'd knock his head too far away to hit him with the right hand. So, but this time, I had to cry. Nobody knew about it but me. that I would
Interesting.
tap with the left and throw the right, and that was Michael Moore.
Yeah, Michael Moore. I spent some time with Michael Moore down in Miami after a UFC event, George, and hung out with him for quite a while. And I talked to him. I asked him because I had watched that fight live, and I tell you what, my whole entire living room went nuts when you knocked him out. But Michael was a pleasant guy, very pleasant guy, fun to talk to, fun to hang out with. And I asked him, I said, honestly, be straight with me. How hard does George hit? He goes, dude, you have no clue how hard that man hits. You just cannot fathom. And I remember as a kid having a Sports Illustrated. I used to collect Sports Illustrateds, and on the back page, and I'm sure you remember this, there was a boxing glove printed on the back page with a dotted line around it, and it says, if you ever wondered how hard George Foreman hits, cut this out, tape it to a brick wall, and run into it face first. You remember that?
I sure would like to see that, though.
It was amazing. I didn't do it, though. I didn't want to find out.
And Mohammed was the only one I remember I hit him. Must have been about the fourth round, because I'd been hitting him anywhere in the corner. Then third round, and I hit him real hard in the side. He looked at me and said, I'm not going to take this from you. And he started to come at me, and he said, forget about it and cover it up. It's like, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that.
He knew to pull back the reins and not brawl with you.
Yeah, and I remember at the bell, when the bell rung, he looked up and said, I did it. I did it. And I looked at him and said, he did it. He made it. And we were both in shock.
Well, George, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was a brave one. Okay.
Is there anything that you want to talk about as far as your ministry or anything like that before we let you go?
Oh, no, the ministry is your life. You got to talk about it. It ain't much of a ministry.
Okay.
Okay. I have to
but
ask.
I appreciate speaking with you guys.
No, we appreciate this, George. This has been an absolute
love people.
Complete
my
honor.
Greatest joy is people.
Well, before we let you slide, I do have one question I have to ask you. After losing to Muhammad and how heartbreaking that was, to come back that many years later, we've all seen it. After you knocked out Michael Moore, you dropped to your knees. Obviously you were thanking your Lord and Savior, but what was the other thought process of once you did it? Like Jim Lampley said, it happened.
It's strange in Africa. I lost to Muhammad Ali, and I'm sitting there, and some of the people who had thought I was so tough walked up to me, and one lady in particular, she said, don't worry, George, you'll get it back. I wanted to say, 20 years later, though?
Hey, better late than never, and you literally changed the narrative.
Better late than ever. Than never. And I said then that I said, I never made reference to religion and all of that, pointing to the sky and all those things. But this time I said, God, if I win this one, I'm just going to get on my knees and be thankful. And I did it. That's why.
George, we are absolutely thankful. Champ, any final words to Mr. Former heavyweight champion?
We're just very thankful that you took the time to speak to us little guys. George, thank you so much, and enjoy your time down there in Houston. Tell everybody we said hi.
Okay, and tell them Patrick Hutton set it up, my friend.
Yes, he did. He's a good man.
Thank you,
Patrick. Sir.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Former gold medalist, former two-time heavyweight champion. I'm losing my freaking mind right now.
You're excited. Well, we've only got a few seconds here, so we just want to thank you for joining the first installment of Everything Combat, because life is a fight. I'm Pat Miletich. For my broadcast partner, Jeffrey Wilson, we are out of here.
Peace.
Foreman enjoying his best round of the fight here in round 10. There's a right hand. Down goes Moore. He's flat on his back. He may not get up.
Not maybe. He's not moving.
Moore could be about to lose the heavyweight title.
I don't believe this.
Joe Cortez pulls up the count. It is over.
Holy
and George Foreman has pulled off the miracle that no one thought possible.
The winner, and once again, heavyweight champion of the world, Big George